This was a different experience. My Sherlock Holmes brain had no idea. It had gone somewhere else. Someone else was running the show. Hey there, how's it going? This is James Tripp. This is a video for James Tripp Chaos Wave. I am calling this video Right Brain Zero Pointing. Now, I'm making this video in response to a question that apparently has mysteriously vanished. So I put up a video last week. It was called 2020 Non-Linear Resolutions, and it was about 2020 being the year of true non-linearity for me. The year where I finally wish to transcend absolutely and completely, if it's possible at all, attempting to micromanage where the chips fall in my life, and instead truly letting go to participate generatively with the unfolding and allowing the chips to fall where they may. There's a big trust thing here that everything is going to play out well when I just engage through the best of who I am, through my own kind of best neuro connections, so to speak. Now, I made the video about that. I don't want to recap the video. There was, I believe, a question left on there, but I cannot find it now. May have been left on another social media platform where I reposted the video. But the question was regarding how specifically am I going to do this? What am I going to do differently, rather than just sharing the abstract conceptualization of it? What, in pragmatic terms, will I be doing differently to be more non-linear in 2020? So, the first thing I want to do here is I want to talk about linearity and non-linearity in terms of hemispheric asymmetry. Hemispheric asymmetry. We have two hemispheres, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, and they seem to do the world in very different ways. So you've got this asymmetry in how the hemispheres do life. And I'm aware as I say this, there might be some people watching this who say, hey James, aren't you keeping up with current events in neuropsychology? Don't you know that that's been debugged? Hemispheric specialization is not a thing. I'm talking about hemispheric asymmetry here, not hemispheric specialization. This is a very different thing. So it appears to be the case that our hemispheres are asymmetrical in how they do life. That our left hemisphere, which tends to be dominant in our society and our culture, does things very linearly, very analytically, very deductively, very sequentially. It's very process driven, this, then this, then this, then this. It's all about sequence in a line, things laid out in a line. Whereas our right hemisphere is much more about non-linearity. It's about parallel processing. It's about induction rather than deduction. And it is parallel processor rather than a linear processor. Picks patterns and is more the seat of intuition and sense and this kind of thing, rather than necessarily finding the clues and figuring stuff out. So in my choice this year to let go of that kind of micromanagement of where the chips fall, it's letting go of left brain function and connecting into right brain function. Now, people watching this channel, you might be thinking, well, James, isn't that a thing that you've been going on about for years? And yes, it is, because it's something I've been developing in myself for years, because previously I did a lot of work to develop my left brain function. So in my early 20s, I did a philosophy degree, and that was philosophy in the contemporary Anglo-American tradition, which is a very left brain approach to philosophy, very much about logic and reason and sort of parsing things and dissecting things and slicing things up, kind of reductionist in a lot of ways. So I really developed that part of my brain, and doing that served me really well. Really did serve me well. It has been a phenomenal thing. It's been a strength for me to be able to do that kind of processing extremely well. But as the old saying goes, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And this is something I came to recognize a number of years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, that I'd become too dominant in that capacity. And there was another way of being, another way of engaging, another way of knowing, another way of doing in life that was perhaps underdeveloped for me. So in Taoism, there is an aphorism that goes, in order to profit, you must invest in loss. I think this is mentioned in the Tai Chi classics as well. I was exposed to this when I was training in Taoist martial arts. In order to profit, you must invest in loss. The idea is whatever your strengths are, whatever you do well, if you do not let go of that, you do not create the space for something new to come through. So I've been looking to invest in loss over the last 5-6 years to develop this more right brain capacity. And I've made progress across time, but that progress has often been held back by fear. You know, what if I really let go and terrible things happen? I'm so good at doing things in the left brain way. I've been afraid of letting go of that strength fully and completely, which has kept me hanging on and clinging on. But this year I really want to shift this. And the question was, you know, how? What are you going to do? And what I intend to do is extend something, or I am already doing this, extending something that has already shifted for me in 2019. And I want to talk about what this is. So, firstly, most of the people watching this know me as a brain wrangler of some kind, as a changework practitioner, hypnotist, NLP or whatever, somebody who helps people upgrade their operating system, helps them move their mind to shape their lives differently. But this is not a thing that I have always done professionally. Before I did this professionally, I was a manual therapist. I used to do body work professionally. And during the time that I was a manual therapist, I also was training as an osteopath. So this is going back a while. And I will say that my training as an osteopath, I did 3 out of 5 years training, by the way. I did this with the College of Osteopaths in London. And I didn't enjoy that training at all. I don't want to kind of get into bitching off about how the college was set up, but I didn't enjoy the culture that was there inside of the teaching faculty. And I didn't enjoy being stifled, being told what I should be studying and what I needed to be interested in. I had to accrue a whole bunch of stuff that was deemed necessary, but wasn't really in my line of interest. So basically, I didn't enjoy my time at the College of Osteopaths. I stayed for 3 years because I'd paid a lot of money in fees, and I was kind of in the sunk cost fallacy of I don't want to leave because I put all this money in, I want to see it through and get my qualification and all of this kind of thing. But I took a year out after 3 years because I needed to make some money to pay for the next year's fees. And I did my formal NLP training in that time, and I just decided, you know what, I love this and this is what I want to do. So I quit manual therapy. But I've never stopped doing manual therapy. I've stopped doing it professionally, but my wife has tension headaches. She gets tension headaches, and she has done for her whole life pretty much. So a couple of times a month, 2-3 times a month, I'm called upon to bring my skills and talents to bear in manual therapy to loosen off what needs loosening off to release these tension headaches. So I've sort of kept my hand in doing manual therapy. I've also done a few bits with other people when people have got injuries and things like this, because I've got the skills. Now, I've never enjoyed doing it. Since being at the College of Osteopathy, it's kind of really tainted my experience. I never really enjoyed doing it for years. I've just done it because I can and it helps people. Except something changed about 6 months ago. Something really fundamental changed about doing manual therapy about 6 months ago, and it was this. I was working with my wife and I sort of drifted off, and my hands were kind of carrying on doing their thing. And as they were carrying on doing their thing, she kept saying to me, yeah, you seem to know exactly where to put your hands. Can you feel that? Can you feel something? Is there something that you're feeling? And my response to that was, no, I can't really feel anything, but it's like my hands know something that I don't know. And these words came out of my mouth, and I was trying to articulate something, which is an experience that is not easy to put into words, but that was as good as I could get with that. But once I became really conscious of it, I thought, isn't this an interesting thing? My hands seem to know something that I don't know. Now, what I'd always done in the past with manual therapy is my hands were never doing anything that I didn't know. My hands were always being directed from up here according to what I was noticing consciously, figuring out, referencing with my knowledge of anatomy, all of these kinds of things. I'm referencing all this stuff. My brain was clearly in control in a top-down way. My left brain, analytical, Sherlock Holmes mind, was figuring out what needed to be done and was doing it. I've been able to do this for years and do it well. I didn't enjoy doing it. But this was different. This was a different experience. My Sherlock Holmes brain had no idea. It had gone somewhere else. Someone else was running the show. Someone else was doing something. And I said it was like my hands. But very quickly I realized it wasn't just my hands, it's my whole body, my whole being. So this became a really interesting experience. And I thought, do you know what? I'm just gonna let this happen more. Just going to start letting this happen more. In the context of doing manual therapy, completely, the first thing that it did was transform my experience of doing manual therapy. I enjoyed doing it suddenly a lot more. Well, suddenly I'm enjoying doing it because it's a weird, interesting, fascinating thing. But the other thing that happened is my technique entirely changed itself. Now, I'm formally trained. I've got tools and techniques, bread and butter stuff that I learned professionally, and ways of doing things and rules by which they're done. All of that suddenly disappeared. My hands are just doing what they're doing. My body, my whole self is just doing what it's doing. Suddenly, sometimes tapping things and, smacking things and just touching here and getting a sense of, that's it. Strange stuff. My technique entirely changed. I stopped using nearly as much pressure. The strain on my hands is completely different. There's no strain on my hands now. Before, I've been doing it for a bit, it would tax my joints. But I'm using a lot less pressure. Everything's changed about what I'm doing, but also everything's changed about the results that I'm getting. Now, if you ask my wife, she will say that I've always got good results with her, but now she will say that I'm getting fantastic results. I'm resolving things much quicker with less residue, less problems, all of this kind of thing. So it's been a bit of a game changer with regard to doing manual therapy. So I've had this shift occur in that context, and what I started to do is let that out into other contexts. So now with regard to my coaching and change work, I am allowing this to happen more. And I had to figure out, because it was sort of happening all by itself in the manual therapy context, I had to figure out how to transfer it across. And I started to do something I'm calling zero pointing at the moment. And it is basically just emptying everything out and sort of creating a psychological vacuum within myself. Now, if you think of this idea that nature abhors a vacuum, when I create the vacuum inside of myself, things get pulled into it. An impulse will get pulled into it. An impulse to do a particular thing will be pulled into that vacuum. And I just allow the impulse and I go with the impulse. There is a huge amount of trust involved in this because I have to keep my left brain out. Otherwise, my left brain will go, but am I sure that's the right thing to do? What's the rationale behind that? I've got to keep that out, right? This is in order to profit, I'm investing in loss. I'm keeping that left brain out. So do this zero pointing, create this space and allow whatever gets pulled in to get pulled in. Now, sometimes that's stuff that's sort of familiar, but sometimes it's stuff that, well, I never saw that coming. Where did that come from? So the developmental edge for me is not just doing this zero pointing and allowing things to come in. It's allowing myself to go with it and going, do you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to let go of this. Even if it seems to run against what my left brain would say is the right thing for this client to do. Even if my left brain cannot make sense of it. It's trusting that that's going to be okay and that's going to unfold in a useful, generative way. So I'm doing this now with my client work, and it's one of the reasons why I'll probably do a video on this later on. That I'm doing something I'm now calling emergent trance work, which is quite a new thing for me, and it's taken this way of working into doing hypnosis or trance work or whatever you want to call it. So I might do another video about that if people are interested. If you are, please do ask down below. Yeah, and I'm also bringing this now into life. This idea of zero pointing, of clearing out psychological space and allowing what's generative to flow in and allowing myself to move with that. Very, very different from plotting out what needs to be done, the to-do lists, the whatever, the plans, the Gantt charts, the whatever tools people might use in the service of the left brain planning. What's much more important is the zero pointing, creating the space. You know, perhaps this principle sat in the background, but just allowing generative activity to fill that and flow out. So this is specifically what I'm doing differently, and it has grown from this manual therapy thing. So from manual therapy into my coaching, change work, brain wrangling stuff, and furthermore now into what I create more broadly out there in the world. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to say any more because this was meant to be a quick video. It's now running at 16 odd minutes. And if you like this video, please do give it the thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to the channel yet, but you are interested in the nexus of mind and life and using your mind to shape your life, please do subscribe, and of course hit the notifications bell because that's important. Otherwise nobody tells you when the videos are out. There's a comment section below. I love it when people ask questions. I love it when people leave comments, because that way this conversation gets to continue. And until it does, keep on using your mind to shape your life.